Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show. My name is Avrum Rosensweig, and today we will be doing Parsha and Prose on the Parsha Tazria-Metzora through the lens of Shakespeare's great literature, of which we will be focusing on King Lear. I am here with my dear friend, Rabbi Shlomo GEMARA. Rabbi, how are you today?
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Avrum. How are you?
Yeah,
And by the way,
thank God.
Mazel Tov. I just heard that you had your big birthday recently. So Mazel Tov, and I wish you until 120 stay young as you are right now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, I just turned 65 on April 27th.
Mazel Tov. That's a milestone, as they say, especially here in Canada, where you start getting, I think, a prescription for free or something.
You go to Shoppers Drug Mart.
I wish you that you will never need this one.
Amen. Chazaku Baruch. But the big thing is, this is an age where you start getting cash, old age pension and CPP. So I'm excited, and I think that every age should come with some sort of cash, gift. But my gift, by the way, is my son was born on April 24th, 2006. God bless him. And that has always been my greatest gift. So people say, what do you have planned for your birthday? I say, to celebrate my son. That's what it is.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I understand that this past Shabbat, your daughter was at your home. How did that go? Nice to have her?
Oh, well, it's very nice. It was very, very nice. It's beautiful to see up close how your grandchildren are growing to be, each one has his own personality. Beautiful, just beautiful. To be a grandparent is lots of naches.
Tell me something. What is it like to have your grandchildren in your home? Are you patient?
They behave very well, I must say. I guess that if they wouldn't, I wouldn't be that patient, but it was just a pleasure.
Well, do you want your grandchildren to behave well? I mean, I often hear that from parents. Oh, he's very quiet. He sits at the table. He doesn't make a fuss. That's not I want. I didn't want that for my child. I wanted
I
him to make
just
a
want
fuss.
them to be themselves. I certainly think that parents should raise their children polite and nice, but
Mm.
I don't want them to tame their children to behave in a certain way, because the moment they will leave the table or the moment they will leave their home, they will behave like wilde chayes, and I think it's a mistake. You give a child the opportunity to be himself with clear guidance, like what is allowed, what is not allowed.
Yes, point well taken. Now, we must mention that this evening is Yom HaZikaron. And Yom HaZikaron serves as Israel's National Memorial Day, providing a time for families, communities, and individuals to remember and honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service for their country. At exactly 7 o'clock p.m., the ceremony will begin with a 1-minute siren. We're speaking about Israel itself. And then, and this has always been something which I have found to be so beautiful. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, falls from sundown, and the major state ceremony for Yom HaAtzmaut takes place on the eve of Yom HaAtzmaut on Mount Herzl, Israel's national ceremony in Jerusalem. So, Rabbi, if it's okay with you, I'd just like to take a moment of silence where we think about those individuals in Israel who fought and who died for the Jewish people. Rabbi, we've had this discussion a number of times before in our previous Parsha and Prose, but I'd like to revisit it for a moment. I'd like to personalize Yom HaZikaron for our listeners and for our viewers. You yourself fought in the IDF, and you had some friends who were lost in the battlefield. Can you tell us about one or two of them?
Um, yeah, I will tell you about. I could tell you the stories of at least 10, 12 people that all of them were killed at one night. Unfortunately, the famous, infamous actually, battle of Sultan Yaakov. But two of them served with me. We lived in the same room, and this was Chovav Landau, Hashem Yikom Damo, and Ze'ev Rotman. You know, regular guys. Chovav was in Kerem Beyavne with me for 4 years. I do remember the moment that the buses came to the yeshiva to take us from the yeshiva. I was in Kerem Beyavne, the Hesder yeshiva of Kerem Beyavne, to the base in order to change and to make sure that the tanks are ready for war. Zeev Rotman was supposed to engage to his a fiance, actually a girl from Montreal, on the Motzei Shabbat, after, namely a few days away. Unfortunately, on Friday morning, they both were killed in their tank. They were actually the first two casualties of dozens who were killed in this battle later. Just wonderful people, promising people. They were just in the very beginning of their life, and they went to protect all of us, to protect Am Israel, and never came back.
What were you like, Rabbi, in those days?
When you are young, you don't think much about it because you know very little about life. You just know that it's an awful thing. And on Friday, when we drove to the base where the tanks came back, some of our friends were just looking for pieces of body that stayed there. And this was very, very shocking experience. You actually peel your friends from the walls of the tank. Terrible experience. But you know what? The more the year pass, the more you have appreciation to what was lost. These people could have families like I have. They wanted to have families like I had. Their parents never came back to what they were before it. And you know, what does it mean to be a parent? What does it mean to have children? What does it mean to have grandchildren? What does it mean to have life? Only when you grow up, and then you will look backward and you reflect on the loss. And surprisingly, not only the time does not heal, but the time give it a completely new perspective of what was lost.
Rabbi, do you ever think to yourself, why them and not why not
Every
me?
day. It was,
How does that work?
you know what? It's honestly, it's kind of sheer luck. Um, what does it take that I would be, let's say, a tank driver as I was certified? This was the first training before I moved to a parachuting unit. Um, well, if nothing would go differently, I would be there in the tank driver seat, and the Syrian commando who targeted this unit, they first of all wanted to hit the drivers in order to shatter the tank so it cannot move, and then it's much easier to kill and to fight the people inside the tank. Um, yeah, I think that every soldier think about it when he goes to war. And you don't need to hear it from me today, because maybe the texting and the WhatsApp, people just minutes before they were killed send messages to their friends talking about the reality that they might not come back. I was stunned by the amount of people who fought in Gaza and left after them a kind of wheels, kind of moral wheels, some of letters to their family, which I believe it's easier to do these days with all the digital devices we have. And they knew exactly what is going to happen. They knew that when you talk about risking life, it's not just words, it's actually getting into a fight, into a tank, into a armored vehicle that you might not come back. And many of them didn't.
How brave are our soldiers today?
I think we spoke about it a few times. I find it incredible because, especially from a point of view of educator who deal with these young people, many of them you wouldn't expect to become heroes, legends. They are young people doing the same nonsense like any other teenage. And lo and behold, when they go to the battlefield, you see that actually you had the merit to teach this brave, profound belief and conviction in what they are doing. And I'm embarrassed that I didn't appreciate it before the way I appreciate it today. And when I read the story, then I would recommend every Jew at this day to read some of the stories of the fallen soldiers. And I think every one of us will have lots of gratitude and admiration to these young people.
Rabbi, I have an AI poem dealing with Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzmaut. In silence deep on Yom HaZikaron, we stand as one, our hearts with grief are torn. For heroes fallen who gave their breath to shield our land from sorrow's death. Their names we whisper, their faces near. In fields of memory, we hold them dear. The sirens wail, a nation cries. Each soul reflects beneath the sky. From sacrifice, their courage flows. In quiet moments, their story grows. We honor them with tears and pride. Their light within us will never subside. Then dawn arises, a shift, a spark. Yom HaTzmaut breaks through the dark. From morning's wait to joy's embrace, we celebrate this sacred place. The flag ascends blue and white, a dream reborn in freedom's light. With song and dance, we mark the day. Our homeland strong, come what may. Through trials past, through hope's bright flame, we build, we thrive, we speak her name. Israel lives, her spirit soars from grief to gladness forevermore. Can you tell me your thoughts, Rabbi, on this brilliant creative move to go from Yom HaZikaron, the depths of and that melancholy state that we're in, to Yom HaTzmaut, which is the greatest day in recent Jewish history? What a brilliant move that was.
It was a brilliant move. I wouldn't say that we don't find something very similar in our tradition when we put Ta'anit Esther, which is a very solemn day, a day of Slichot, next to Purim, because unfortunately, too many times, our great achievements as a nation were a result of very tough times. And in a way, you can think about Leila Seder as a night that combine Avadim Ainu Leparo B'Mitzrayim on one hand and the Hallel that we are singing already in advance before the final redemption at one night. And by the way, that's the reason why we break the matzah to two, because the matzah is representing on one hand the lechem oni, the bread of poverty in Egypt. But at the same time, it reminds us how we left Mitzrayim to build a new nation. So we break the matzah because it symbolizes two contradicting things. And in the same spirit, I would say that Yom HaZikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut, the yachatz, it's like taking the matzah and break it to two. One full with tears, with sadness, with mourning. And the other one is the redemption of the Jewish people who eventually had their land. They have something to protect. They have a reason to die, not as a result of pogrom, but protecting their families, their friends, the people in Israel. I think that I told you once that my father-in-law, Zichrono Livracha, when he was asked what was the most significant day of his life, he did not say my wedding day. He did not say the day I arrived to Israel, the day I was liberated from the labor camp. No, he said the day I was assigned a rifle. And like everyone was stunned, and he said, for a Jew that could never protect his own life, for a Jew that could not protect his family, his community, who was always subject to the whims of anti-Semites, to hold a rifle, to hold a gun, to protect my family, my community, my nation, this is the greatest day of my life.
Rabbi, I remember when I was in yeshiva in 1978 in Israel on Yom Ha'atzmaut. What I recall is that people walking around with these little hammers, not real hammers, so plastic hammers,
Batikim,
bonking me on right, bonking me on the head. What is a memory that you have of Yom Ha'atzmaut?
my memory. Listen, once we went to yeshiva high school, in elementary school, it was like just a day that I think we sang. We maybe it was even a day off. I'm not exactly sure in my elementary school. When I was in yeshiva high school, it already was like more formal. We had the tefillah chagigit, a special davening. There was a special meal. This I remember actually. There were divrei Torah about the necessity of Medinat Israel and what does it mean. And remember, this was the time that many Holocaust survivors came to celebrate with us. For them, like Medinat Israel was a miracle in front of their eyes, things that we then did not understand, and I'm afraid that many don't understand today. What does it mean? Just to come from the ashes of Auschwitz and Birkenau and Bergen-Belsen and to have your own home. This was just unbelievable. So we had many of these people telling their stories, dancing with Bnei Akiva or with the yeshiva. Patishim, it was kind of like the hammers. They do the quick. This was less. Then, when we had children, there is a beautiful tradition in Israel. All the army bases are open. If it's the police, if it's the IAF, the aviation force, the naval, and we took our children. We went to a submarine or a destroyer. I remember in Ashdod, we went to a base of Chel Avir, and it was so beautiful because one strong memory was that who welcomed us? The commander, the chief commander of Chel Avir in Israel. Just the smile on his face, and he gave us a souvenir which he himself signed. It was just nice to see. It's your country. It's a very, very special feeling.
And Rabbi, today, as a Zaidi, as a father, a Saba, tell us what is poignant about Yom Ha'atzmaut for you.
I still admire the miracle that happened to the Jewish people. I think I can understand it. After all, I'm a second generation to the Holocaust. I heard many, many stories what life were before we had our country. What does it mean to have no land? How fragile are your life? What does it mean to have a country? What is the price that we pay for a country? So to me, it's emotional day, even today. I must say that in light of everything that happened in recent years, I just pray in this day also that this miracle will last. Um, we have to remember that the Jewish people, even when they were not in exile, not always knew how to maintain having their own land, own country, all kind of fights that always jeopardize the living in the land, the peaceful life in a land. And I'm very, very concerned about what is happening now in Israel. I just hope that everyone will come back to his and her senses, and we will learn again how to live together despite differences, despite disagreements, because I'm very, very concerned. So Yom Ha'atzmaut, 77 years after establishing Medinat Israel, is for me a day of inspiration, admiration, but great concern too about the future.
I'm Yisrael Chai.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the series that we are bringing to you today is called Parsha Prose, and we are delighted to do so. Before we talk about the Parsha itself, and we do so through the lens of classic literature, the Rabbi and I sort of like to riff on personal ideas and thoughts, things that we can share with you that hopefully will impact upon your life, and we call that Shivim Panim. Within Shivim Panim, I have a question for the Rabbi, and if you know this, I'll have great pride in you. Tell me something. Where does the word Holocaust come from?
You ask in English or in Hebrew?
So in English, and you'll arrive at the Hebrew.
Well, in the English, if you would open a newspaper 100 years ago, 90 years ago, you will find actually in New York Times like a sale, a Holocaust sale, which means to the last one. Like, I don't know how you call it today, like old store sale or something like this.
Clearance. It's a
Exactly.
clearance sale.
Of course, after the tragic event where a third of the Jews in the world were killed, and the name Holocaust was given to it, no one used it anymore to sell furniture. But this was the word that used to, as they say, like wholesale sale, something that clearance sale, exactly. The word Shoah in Hebrew comes from a word in the Tanakh that describe a total desolation. Nothing was left. Shoah umashua, namely like a terrible, terrible destruction. The word, the shorish, the root of sha'ah, shin aleph hey, which is Shoah, means a vacuum. Nothing is there. And this was actually a very powerful word to describe what was left after this terrible event, that thriving communities with thousands of children were just like evacuated. Nothing was left. So I think that the word Shoah is a very powerful word, but that's a problem of words. They cannot really describe what happened. It's a kind of compromise between the need to communicate things and the reality itself. So if it's Holocaust, if it's Shoah, these are powerful words, but obviously they cannot replace the memory and understanding of what really happened.
So let me add to what you're saying. A Holocaust is a religious animal sacrifice. It's the Olah that is completely consumed by fire, also known as a burnt offering. The word derives from the ancient Greek holocaustos, the form of sacrifice in which the victim was reduced to ash, as distinguished from an animal sacrifice that resulted in a communal meal. So if people say, how do you say Korban Olah in English? It's Holocaust.
Very interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. All right, folks, let's move on here. The Parsha or the Parshiot that we are learning this week and sharing with you is Tazria-Metzora. Let me tell you just a little bit about it. The combined Torah portion of Tazria-Metzora, that's Leviticus 12:1 to 15:33, it delves into the intricate laws of ritual purity and impurity, focusing on conditions that render a person temporarily unfit to participate in sacred communal activities. Tazria begins with the purification process for women after childbirth, then addresses tsaras, a mysterious skin condition often mistranslated as leprosy, which requires priestly diagnosis and a quarantine. Metzora continues by detailing the purification rituals for those afflicted with tsaras, as well as impurities arising from bodily discharges. These laws, while seemingly technical, reflect a deeper spiritual framework, emphasizing the importance of holiness, community, and the human body as a vessel for divine connection. Through these rituals, the Torah underscores the balance between physical and spiritual well-being, inviting reflection on personal responsibility and restoration of harmony within oneself and society. Let me tell you a little bit about King Lear, written by William Shakespeare. I'm going to give you some points this week. I'm going to approach it a little bit differently and tell you about the book itself and the plot. King Lear is a tragedy centered on the downfall of an aging king who misjudges his daughter's loyalty, leading to personal and political chaos. Lear, king of Britain, decides to divide his kingdom among his three daughters, Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia, based on their declaration of love for him. Lear's vanity blinds him to the insincere flattery of Goneril and Regan, while he banishes his honest daughter, Cordelia, for her restrained but genuine response. The play includes a secondary plot involving the Earl of Gloucester, whose illegitimate son Edmund deceives him into believing his legitimate son Edgar is a traitor. The play explores loyalty versus betrayal, highlighting the consequences of misplaced trust. Stripped of power and betrayed, Goneril and Regan, Lear descends into madness, wandering in a storm, which symbolizes his inner turmoil and the chaos of the kingdom. King Lear probes existential questions about human nature, justice, and the indifference of the universe, making one of Shakespeare's most profound works. Now, how did you bring these two together? I struggled with that.
Listen, this is not an easy parsha, and I myself struggled with how to bring them together. So it's more like the emotional connection between the two, and I will explain, because I had some few other ideas to highlight this theme of connection between spirit and body, especially like the novel of Shai Agnon, Shira, that takes place in the hospital for people with leprosy in Yerushalayim, which is he by himself, he did not publish in his life. It's a modern literature, very uncharacteristic to the other literature of Agnon. But again, I knew that many of our listeners, we never read it, and but I do suggest to everyone who visit Yerushalayim, there is a beautiful place that is called Beit Hensen. It was a hospital built in the late, I believe, or maybe mid 19th century by a princess, Norwegian a princess or Danish, I cannot remember, who came to Jerusalem as a devoted Christian, and she saw in the entrance to Jerusalem people with leprosy. And she was so shocked that immediately she started to fundraise to build to these people the low of the low. No one want to come next to them, and they are doomed to terrible, terrible life. This was before they found anything that can help them. And the decay over years. Limbs are falling apart. Terrible thing. Baruch Hashem, I think today we don't have it anymore. Maybe in very remote parts of the world. Today, it's one of the most beautiful places in Yerushalayim. You must be there. It's not far away from Emek Refaim. If people like to eat healthy, they have also a very good restaurant. But I'm not the presenter for the restaurant. It's just a place to see where dozens of people lived in complete isolation from their families in Yerushalayim. You can see until this very day, like the doors that people could communicate with their relatives. When I go and stand next to this door that are far away from each other with a very small window so the eyes can meet, not more than that, because they were afraid that spit is going to cross from the patient to his relatives. Today in 2025, I'm crying because it brings me such a crying, because I'm happy, first of all, that we don't have it today. Baruch Hashem, how the world, we don't appreciate what we have today, and crying because I can imagine how many tears were just dropped in this place that was so painful for the patient and for their families. It's a must see, and it's a beautiful see, very relaxing, very beautiful place. So the reason why I spoke about King Lear, because King Lear in our Parsha is, after dividing his kingdom between his daughters, he's actually in exile. He's like away from where he used to live, and he lived in isolation. And the interesting thing is that he is transformed by his isolation. He starts to appreciate the real things in life. And I thought a lot about the Metzora, for example, the person who has to be far away from his family, away from society. No one is allowed to talk to him. Tameh tameh ikra. Actually, when he comes around, people around him start to scream, Tameh tameh, don't come close. Such a terrible shame and embarrassment and isolation and lack of any social support. And I thought about, does it have anything like positive in it? Something that is actually have some hope in such a low condition. And when I think about the Parsha, and when I see what happened to King Lear, understanding better life, the real values of life, I say to myself, you know what, maybe that's what the Torah meant. The Torah did not see the isolation of the Metzora just as a punishment for all kinds of things. We can talk about it later, why a person became with a spiritual disease like tzara. But I want to focus on the positive in it. Sometimes when we are away, not part of society, we have more time to think about life, about our mission in the life. What do I have to do in this life? What I was wrong so far? How can I change? So it was also a transformative time for a person in isolation, something that really happened to King Lear, that he could actually understand only when he was in isolation, only when he was rejected by his own daughters, by his people, and had the time to think about life.
All right, so let's drill down a little bit. A great answer, by the way. Just tell me again the name of that hospital so people can hear.
It's called Beit Hansen. I cannot remember the street, but I would say it's just behind Emek Refaim. So many people are going to Emek Refaim, which is a beautiful, the cultural vein of Yerushalayim. But it's like 10 minutes walk in a beautiful area, like full with trees. And listen, she built this house really she wanted to give some comfort, some relief to these people. And I went not only to the restaurant and to the beautiful garden there, but I was lucky to join a visit in the house itself. You still have the doctor's tools, as it used like you have to understand, like the hospital was closed, I think, in the 1960s or something like this. People were there until the 1960. It was more than 100 years that the house hosted people, and it was a Christian institution that took care for Jews who got the leprosy, Arabs, many of them were Arabs. Nuns treated them. Sometimes they actually contracted the disease from their patients. A place with history, very, very sad history, very, very sad history. You can imagine what does it mean to be in this dark. The rooms are dark, spacious but dark. You owe yourself visit this place, Beit Hansen.
Beit Hansen. By the way, just a side point, I always like the way you bring up restaurants whenever you talk about traveling in Israel. You know, you're a foodie, aren't you? You like a
I'm not,
good
I'm not that
falafel.
foodie. There are some people in my family who really understand very well, but it's quite amazing. Listen, we are travelers, and many times when we travel, we have to make sure that we find ourselves in a place where we can get some Jewish food, or at
Right,
least
right,
like
right.
food that we can handle. Going to Israel for people who like to eat, it's a mechai, it's a paradise. You know, like you have so many restaurants, and so many good restaurants.
I think your daughter Rachel is a foodie.
She's
I've seen
she's
some
she's
posts
very good.
on Facebook of dinners. Yeah,
She
yeah,
had a
she's quite
nice
something. N-
many followers on Facebook. She's a very, very good cook.
I want to drill down into what we're speaking about here when we talk about Soras. The first couple psukim in Tazria read, Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, when a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, she shall be contaminated for a 7-day period, as during the days of her separation, infirmity shall she be contaminated." So it's very clear that this is setting up these two parshiot with the concept of contamination. And the parshiot continue to talk about if this, whatever it is, we're going to talk about in a moment, gets on your clothing or gets on your home, then here is what the process is in order to make things pure again. So we're clearly not talking about leprosy. It's a mistake to think that we are. So Rabbi, what are we talking about? And does it still exist?
First of all, it exists only after confirmation of a Kohen, and I don't know any Kohen, including myself, who is able today to determine if you have a tzarat or not. It's a all kind of laws that determine you have to diagnose a skin condition to declare it as tzarat. Um, by the way, it's not only on the body. You can have tzarat on your house, where spots appear on the house in certain colors and shape, in certain places. That you have to take everything from the house. You have to take away the blocks from the house and to rebuild it. So certainly, it's a spiritual disease, so to speak. It's something that comes from within, and this is just like a symptom. And our scholars tell us that when you when a person has a tzarat, uh, something is wrong not only with the skin. The skin is just a symptom to something which is rotten very much within him or her. And they have to start thinking about it. And again, this is something which resonates very much with King Lear and other stories of Shakespeare. Like, what happened to us is many times a result of our own situation. And if you really want to take care over certain problems, physical problems, you start with the soul, with your personality, with character building, and not with the state of the skin. And only when you are ready, only when you went through this soul search and understanding what went wrong, then the skin is going to be clear and you are ready to integrate back into society.
You know, the sages say that the word Metzora is contradiction of, or I'm sorry, a contraction of Motzi Ra, one who spreads slander. So, and you'll find that in Arichem 15b, and it's the idea that, as you're saying, that there's character flaws. Um, Again, just to dig a little deeper, Rabbi, what is it about skin within a Torah context that is important here? Why would the Rabbeinu Shalom say, listen, you're speaking Lashon Hara, you're doing things that are inappropriate, and therefore it's going to come out on your skin? Why might that be?
First of all, skin is something that is people can see. You know, people cannot see my kidneys, but people can see my skin. And if you have something that you want other to recognize, then you hit the skin. On a more, I would say, Kabbalistic level, I think that we have to remember what happened after Adam and Eve uh, had their sin in Gan Eden, in paradise. It said that God gave them kotnot, or he gave them like skin. I don't know how Adam and Eve were before, but the idea of having skin appears next to the sin of Adam and Eve. And I'll tell you one thing which I find fascinating about the word or, in which is Ain Vav Reish. In Hebrew, this word Ain Vav Reish is also to be blind, Iver. And if you think about the story of King Lear, you know, Gloucester became like blind, which I think has a very important meaning. Sometimes you don't see the world, but you feel the world, and you understand even more by not seeing the outside. One of the transformation that happened to King Lear is to understand that behind the furs and the robes, there is something much more authentic and much more amiti, real, than just the way you appear outside. And I think that's exactly the message of the Torah. The Torah said, okay, you will see the outside, but I'm telling you that the outside is just like the gate for the inside. And something is wrong within you. And to be a human being is not just like the ability to go out and to present yourself to others. It's always looking inside you. And I think it's a very powerful message in our Parsha and in King Lear.
Yes, lovely. In Tazria-Metzora, it's emphasized the priest's role in diagnosing tzoras, requiring very careful discernment. In King Lear, Lear's tragic flaw is his misjudgment of his daughter's loyalty. How do both texts explore the consequences of judgment or flawed judgment by authority figures?
Okay, so I really want to talk about something that I think will give us a better understanding of the Parsha and King Lear. And you actually pointed a very important point here regarding King Lear, and I'll try to develop it. You know, many laws in the Torah are mentioned very briefly. You take a concept like Shabbat, which is for every Jew, every single week, a huge implication on Jewish life. But if you look in the Torah about like the laws of Shabbat, you will find very little about it. Actually, our sages have to take all kind of midrashic technique in order to figure out what is not allowed on Shabbat, because actually in the Torah it just say that you don't light fire and you don't take things from one domain to another. You don't find anything about plowing or pruning or cooking. Maybe cooking, yes, but because it's part of like lighting the fire. When you come to the Parsha of Tazria-Metzora, which in some generations, by the way, there was no tzarat whatsoever. It's something that hopefully happened to very few people. You get here like a nice chunk of Torah with all the details and the colors and the sided and what happened if it spread or going smaller by the week. Why? What is the message of the Torah by devoting and giving this strange and unpleasant? Let's be honest about it. Like when you talk about discharge, if it's blood or other discharge from the body, it doesn't make you very. It's not pleasant. It makes you nervous and feeling a little bit
Queasy.
rejection, right?
Queasy. Yeah.
So, what is the message of the Torah here? Why the Torah pays so much attention? And I thought quite a lot about it because I know that many people, when it comes to Tazria-Metzora, they will read in shul, the pamphlet or the news in Israel. It's it's something more interesting, much more uplifting. But it's connected somehow to what we said in the beginning of our podcast today. I think the message here is very, very important. We have laws in our life. Not everything in our life is going to be like uplifting and the good times. We have situations in our life when we are embarrassed, low confidence, isolated. And for many, many people in situations like this, the reaction is depression. Like they cannot deal with it. And the Torah here send such an important message. I'm with you even in the worst time of your life. I will give you my hand to bring you back, to be yourself, to be renewed, to be charged again, and to be part of the society. And to me, it's such a powerful message because usually as a rabbi, as an educator, you see people in their good moments. Very few of us, first of all, want to see people in their lowest moments, and even fewer can deal with it, which is the real job of the priest, of the Kohen, that you asked in the beginning of your question. The Torah said, I have an agent. God said, I have an agent. This will be the priest. So the priest, on one hand, is the one who's doing Birkat Kohanim, and everyone look, and he's teaching Torah, and everyone is impressed. But the Torah said, I want the Kohen to be also with the people who are in isolated from society, the people who are embarrassed because they feel so terrible with their body. And today it's a big issue, like the body image that people have. And I'm sure that people who were in certain situation in their life with blood and all kind of diseases that cause all kind of discharges from their body, they felt awful about themselves. And Hashem said, no, you are not alone in it. I'm going with you. I will send you the priest, a person with compassion, and give the Birkat Kohanim and teaching Torah. He will be with you. He will make sure that you are going back to your normal life. And I think it's an amazing message. Baruch Hashem, for most of us, it's not happening on a daily basis. But sometimes we need this support, and the Torah sent the Kohen to be the support of a person like this. And I think this is a lesson also that Shakespeare actually missed, because this is a tragedy. And like in many stories of Shakespeare, which are modeled after the Greek tragedy, there is no good end. By the way, the King Lear, as we know it today, is a little bit, was renovated a little bit because the audience did not like the end that Shakespeare wrote. And when you have today, like the King Lear, the end is a little bit more optimistic. Shakespeare himself ended the story like with everyone died on the on stage, which is not the Jewish message. The Jewish message is, and I will rephrase what there is a Nova exhibition now in town, and they did not call it the Nova museum or exhibition. They call it "We Will Dance Again." We will dance again, and I think it's such a ingenious, beautiful message. You don't ignore the tragedy. You don't ignore the terrible bloodshed that happened, but you always come with a hope. We will dance again. And if I could title or retitle the Parsha of Tazria-Metzora, I would say like the subtitle will be, "We will dance again. We will be part of society again."
Beautiful, beautiful. You mentioned to me prior to our interview today that you feel as though these two parshiot are perhaps the most important ones in the Torah. And I'm assuming it's predicated on what you just said. Do you want to add to that at all?
Listen, I'll take you through some of the laws of Metzora, because when the Metzora is like isolated, it's not only isolation, he has to sit in a way he cannot shave. He has to cover himself completely up to his nostrils with kind of kafia, kind of like today we I mean the Ashkenazim and even the Sephardim, but the Yemenites are still doing it. They cover themselves with a blanket so that you cannot see them. They are completely closed into themselves. So not shaving, not haircut, sitting outside. It all reminds you, I think, like the laws of Shiva when you, and even worse, because in Shiva, everyone comes to console you. Everyone comes to support you. For a Metzora is outside, no one is allowed to talk to him. It's a terrible situation. So there is similarity between the mourning of a person or beloved one and the laws of Metzora. And if you think a little bit about it, to me it means you also sit Shiva. But you know who you're sitting after? After yourself.
Yeah.
And you lost something of your personality. Death is not only like ceasing physically to exist. Something of your neshama, something of your inner strength diminished, and you sit Shiva on yourself. But don't worry, there will be something after the Shiva. There will be a process when you are going to regain your strength and to go into society. And that's why I said it's, to me, after thinking a little bit about it, maybe Tazria-Metzora, and they are, remember, these two parshiot are in the center of the Torah. You have Bereshit Shmot, Bamidbar Devarim, and in the middle of Vayikra, you have Tazria-Metzora. And I think that the author put it exactly in the middle to tell you that this is the middle of the Torah. You know what this Torah is all about? Helping and supporting and reviving the people who are actually lost their own personality. Hashem is with them.
Very well developed, Rabbi. Very well developed. It's a lovely thought. There are a number of different classic quotes in King Lear. One could argue the entire novella or the entire novel is classic, but I want to read you a couple, and I want to ask you about the final one. One of them is, "Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again. Blow winds and crack your cheeks. Rage blow. I am a man more sinned against than sinning. How sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless
By the way,
child."
that's I think the sentence that shifting King Lear when he talks about the people who sinned against him and he doesn't see the sins he himself did. This is the key where actually he goes into a transformation, because through the story he actually realized that it's not true. He may be seen towards others more than people sinned towards him, and even the people who sinned against him actually was part of the process of understanding that what he saw so far was a very narrow part of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like the emperor without clothes.
You know what? Very
Perhaps
much so.
fun.
Very, very much so.
Yeah, very much so. So, Rabbi, final quote, and I want to ask you: is this Jewish at all? When we are born, we cry that we are come to this great stage of fools. Is there anything Jewish
It's a
about that?
very interesting thought, because it's very, very interesting to see that the first reaction of a baby, and actually everyone is sighing in relief when the baby is crying, right? It's an amazing sight for everyone who was around a born baby. Like, everyone is, when he's crying, everyone is like, okay, everything is fine, everything is good. And I think it's a very fascinating experience for everyone. And the Torah also, like our Chachamim, also were troubled by this phenomenon. And well, Shakespeare said he cries because he knows the future. He knows that he's going to be in a world of fools, which is a very profound idea. The Jewish thought is a little bit different, and there is a midrash that say that a baby is crying because he has a feeling that he will not be able to fulfill his potential in this world, which is a very different thought, isn't it? It's not about being in a situation, it's about himself understanding that he has a mission, and he's crying because he's not sure that he's going to be able to do it. Another way is seeing it as the first prayer of a person when he comes to the world. And if you think about it, it's very, very interesting. I always say that to meet Kiat Shofar is, remember, Rosh Hashanah is the day that Adam and Eve were created. And when a person is created, the first thing that he has is a crying. I don't know if you had the privilege to stand next to a born baby, but I had few. And this it's really like Tkiat Shofar in a way. To remind us, we were born, we celebrate our universal birthday. And we want to remember this unique moment of the first crying, which turns to be in Rosh Hashanah to the most important part of the day, the greatest connection and voice that we express towards God.
You have a very powerful relationship with the shofar.
Because I used to blow the shofar for many years.
And I remember you told me that you wanted to understand the blowing of the shofar better, and you took some classes on blowing a horn.
It's very true, yeah. The mechanics. Actually, I always have the shofar next to me. So
not too
it's
far
not
away,
Rosh
right?
Hashanah, but I always there is something in.
What do you think? What do you think it is about the shofar that you love so much?
I don't know. It's a pure sound. It represents so much. And I do agree that sometimes the most simple music, and crying is also kind of music, is the purest one. Is the purest one. You don't have the sophistication as we discussed in, Tchaikovsky. It's simple, and so meaningful.
Do you love the oboe? What's your favorite symphony instrument?
I'm very haunted by the harp. To be honest with you, I love the harp. Very unique. What else? I like the cello. I think in maybe next cycle, uh, maybe I will play a cello. I love I don't like the crying of the violin. I have to admit this one, although it's beautiful to hear some of the virtuosic, and many of them were Jews because the violin is a very Jewish instrument, no question. But cello bring more depth, I believe, to music. The interesting thing is that almost every instrument has concerto built for this instrument, and actually the beauty is that when you hear a concerto to flute, okay, um, you see the beauty of this instrument. When you hear for violin, for sure, for piano, for sure, but there are very unique one for harp, for example. One that I really love is Lear. Well, just fantastic. You can Google it and you will love it. So every instrument has its qualities. So it's very very hard to talk about one that I like the most.
I encourage you, Rabbi, at some point in time that you need to learn an instrument. I think it'd be
For
good
me,
for you.
I think it's a little bit too late. But let me tell you, one of
No.
the most impressive and rewarding things that are happening in our house recently. My wife used to play piano for many many years, and for 45 years, her finger did not touch even once the piano. Just
Yeah.
you raise a family, like you have many things to do. No. And one day, about 2 months ago, we visited our grandchildren, and they started to learn piano with a wonderful teacher. And my wife said, "I think I like it actually." And when my wife wants something, she's telling me I want it, and I bought like electric piano, a wonderful one of Yamaha with beautiful sound, very much like the real piano, and with the same feeling of the, how do you call the klidim in Hebrew?
It's called a
Yeah,
weighted
weighted piano,
piano.
exactly. So
Yes.
you feel it. It's not like the cheap electric one. And since then, our house is full with
Uh,
waltzes, and she just took it so seriously, and
uh,
it changed the whole atmosphere at home.
that's magnificent. I have to tell you, many years ago, I was friends with a fellow by the name of Milt Harris, who was a huge philanthropist and a steel magnate. And he was a big leader in the Jewish community. And he and I became close through via Hafta, my organization. Unfortunately, he passed away very young. At some point in time, he said, Avram, come over to my place. I want to play some music for you. Oh, I said, that would be an honor. Thank you. And I went over, and in his early 70s, he took up the harpsichord,
Wow.
and he was brilliant at it.
He played it.
So
He
you're not too
played it
old.
before, or
No, he picked it up in his early
wow.
70s. Rabbi, I want to ask you a question. In conclusion, what would be the application of Tazria-Metzora today?
Eh, I would say there are few lessons that we can take from Tazria-Metzora that I take when I read the Parshiot of Tazria-Metzora. The first one is that the Torah is not shy of talking about unpleasant experiences. Um, I think it's a very important message to me because sometimes, and sometimes I hear it in the air, the dealing with body, especially when the body is not like of an athlete or in its best, it can be a source of shame, can be a source of embarrassment. So the Torah is not shy to speak about the unpleasant situations in our life, and the Torah recognize the fact that we need support. So I would say, yes, this is one thing that we have to learn from here, not to ignore people in who's struggling, especially mentally with all kinds of situation. We have just to show we are there to help. This is number one. I think one important message is also that there is no two realms of holiness and secular life. Even in the most, I would say, secular body, physical life, there is a need to regulate it in a holy way. So when a person is affected by tzarat or by nida or by any a bodily phenomenon, it become also holy. It's not like away from the Torah. Even the situation of tameh that is not allowed to go to the temple is not a person who is like rejected in terms of his spiritual life. Well, he goes through a down cycle in the cycle of spirituality, but the aim is to go up and to return even better to a normal life. Another one, to me, as a Kohen, especially as a Kohen as an educator, because the Kohanim were the educators of Am Yisrael, is a call to be involved and to help people who need help, even if it's not your cup of tea, even if it's not something that you really want to do. You have to dirt your hands sometimes and to deal with people who are not simple. And your first reaction is not to deal with them. The Torah is telling us that this is actually the responsibility of the Kohen. You cannot just give sermons. You have to be involved sometimes with difficult cases. And as I said before, we need God actually when we are in a very desperate situation. We have to remember that. And God is there for us. We just have to expose it.
You know, Rabbi, I was ready to conclude, but you brought up a point which I was thinking about, which I think requires some sort of responses. So maybe just for a couple of minutes, you know, I heard recently that somebody was very critical of the whole concept of nida, the woman's menstrual cycle, saying that Judaism looks at that woman as being dirty and therefore she has to separate herself from the camp, talking about, you know, what our body can be, sometimes embarrassing, sometimes not. What indeed is the concept of nida within Judaism? Is it a reflection of how we see that woman during that period in the month where she is dirty, or is it an impurity? How do we look at it?
That's an excellent question that requires a podcast by itself. But I would say the following, because the idea of nida is not unique only to our society. There are many religions and many societies that have a certain views on the woman as unclean. I cannot ignore this part. And in general, in Sefer Vayikra, stop me when it's getting too long, but I think it's very important. There is a very interesting disagreement between the Rambam and the Ramban. What is the purpose of Korbanot, which is a major part of Vayikra? According to the Rambam, the Jewish people, when they were in Egypt, associated themselves with all kind of black magic that was part of the life of the Egyptian. We read it about the Khartoumim, about the people who could do all kind of magics. And you cannot turn from a person under the influence of one culture to be a completely different person overnight. And the Korbanot, according to the Moreh Nevuchim that the Rambam wrote, is a way to get out from one culture that used blood and animals for black magic to take it to a completely different direction of being closer to God. So according to the Rambam, very interestingly, the idea of korbanot is actually taking a situation, a social situation of certain people, and to turn it around to something which is holy and closer to God. The Ramban is very I would say, almost upset with this approach. And he said, no, the korbanot are pure by themselves. It's not any vehicle to take you away from a bad culture. On the contrary, the korbanot, the whole idea of korbanot is holy by inherently holy, and not as a response or rejection of another culture. And to me, this agreement is fundamental in understanding many things in Vayikra. For example, this idea of nida. I cannot say that in certain societies, nida and the blood on of the period is considered something which is magil, and I don't want to come across it. And you can understand the laws of nida in this context. But I really want to see it through the lens of the Ramban, which see things in a very different way and in much more uplifting way. What is happening in Nida? The Nida is happened, the period it happened when the womb was ready to accept new form of life, but nothing happened. Nothing happened because it was not the egg was not fertile by the sperm, and the body has to prepare himself. Okay, let's go to another chance to build life. And when this happened and the womb reject the blood and the tissues involved, it's like a sad moment when life were not formed. And if you really want to understand the idea of tum'ah, all the sorts of tum'ah, of defilement, is lack of life, missed opportunity to have life. If you think even about men and his discharges, it's something that did not materialize to become life. And something which is not life in Jewish thought is something which is a missed opportunity, something which missed his a mission in the world. So there is another way to look upon it. It's like the sadness of not forming new life. But you have another opportunity next month and another opportunity in the months after. So in a way, I don't want to call it celebration, but I would say appreciation, moments of appreciation of life and the sadness when it was not materialized. So seeing it as defilement, as unclean and so on, I'm not rejecting it because in many societies it is. But the Torah always have a much deeper level, and I think the deeper level is celebration of life and sadness and mourning, kind of, when life were not materialized.
I'm not sure, but I remember a number of years ago learning the first Mishnah in Bea Shenola B'Yom Tov, that an egg that is laid on Yom Tov, what's the status of it? And I remember a similar description, like this is a life that was brought into this world. What's the status of a life or a potential life on Yom Tov? Does that resonate with you at all?
That's beautiful. That's a very beautiful. I don't think that we have enough time to develop.
We don't have time. We don't have time. No.
Okay, so remind me. I will talk about like a very interesting story in the Talmud about eggs and cheese from white and black goats and white and black chicken. So remind me one day we
I will.
will.
I wrote it down. I wrote it down. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to conclude with a poem from AI on Tazria-Metzora.
Two in a day.
Yeah, exactly. Something new. I would have thought through the lens of Lear. In the camp of Israel, sores of shame arise. Tzara creeps over the flesh, a mirror of lies. Like Lear upon the heath, cast out undone, the Metzora wails, neath a judging sun. Speak skin, cries the priest, as Lear sought truth. Yet words betray in age or fleeting youth. Goneril's flattery, a plague of the tongue. Like Lashon Hara, its venom is sprung. Outside the camp, the afflicted must dwell in wilderness Lear's heart echoes their knell. His crown undone, his daughter's love a blight. Both bear their wounds in the endless night. The priest brings hyssop, cedar, crimson thread to cleanse the soul where impurity bled. See Cordelia's grace, a balm to Lear's pain, seeks to restore what madness would stain. Yet houses too bear streaks of greenish hue as kingdoms crack when loyalty's untrue. The walls of Lear's court, like stone defiled, crumble beneath the sins of a thankless child. O Tazria-Metzora, right, teach us to mend what festers in sight. For Lear's great stage, like Torah's decree, bids us seek truth, though broken we might be. From isolation's curse, a path to return. Through humble steps, redemption we earn. The Metzora's cleanse, Lear's tears fall clear. In affliction's shadow, God's mercy draws near.
This is actually very good. It captures most of the points to capture.
Yes. I'm so happy you're liking these poems. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us on Parsha and Prose. We were studying the Parshiot Tazria-Metzora through the lens of Shakespeare's classic King Lear. Make sure to learn the Parsha every single week, as it can bring so much to you, and share it with your family and friends, because the applications are there for today. I wish everybody a very heartfelt and a very serious and introspective next 2 days, when we remember those who died on the battlefield for the protection of the Jewish people. And we also remember the birth of our homeland, Eretz YISRAEL. Rabbi, would you like to add something in conclusion?
I would just say that in a way, if you think about Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut, you get the idea of Yoledet, of someone who gave birth, which comes always through pain, blood. But everyone is wishing to experience this pain and blood, because you know that what is coming out of it is so great, so meaningful, so beyond what we can imagine. And maybe we can learn from here also a lesson, not to the individual, but to the nation. We have the tough time of blood and pain, which are so necessary for the birth process and the labor process. And sometimes there are screams, and I cannot take it anymore. Everyone who was in a labor room knows what I'm talking about. But at the end, you have something magnificent, and hopefully Medinat Israel will be able to learn to live together despite differences, to bridge differences, to be enriched from differences. And we are going to have many, many more years of a strong country. Hopefully, we will not have to pay the price that we paid so far for having such a wonderful country. So, as you said, Yom Zikaron Mashmauti, meaningful one, and Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach.
You know, I was wrong before about you. I think you are a musician. I really do. I think you're a musician of, you know how to play creative thoughts and ideas, and you know how to sling together words as one would sling together notes in a symphony. So I was wrong. You are a musician. That's a beautiful thought, a wonderful thought. Did you just come up with that? It's a great idea.
Yeah, as you asked me, I said, well, that's actually what I was talking about before.
That's lovely. Just lovely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Zeit gesinnt, as they say in Yiddish, go in health. Am Yisrael Chai. Proud to be a Jew. Be proud to be a Jew. These are difficult times, but we have to remember that we are a very special people, and we have the Torah to learn, and make sure to find time to do that during the course of the week. Rabbi Gomor, you did a beautiful job. Thank you so much. Zeit gesinnt, and we'll be back together with you once again next week. Thank you.